The MOS of a 74 Delta in the United States Army is a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear specialist. That's really long, but most commonly people usually refer to it as a CBRN Specialist or MBC. Now before we dive into this MOS, make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you are not already. Also enable notifications so you can join the notification platoon and get notified as soon as new videos go live, including live streams. So let's get into the job responsibilities of a 74 Delta in the United States Army. Some of those job duties of that CBRN Specialist are going to include things like establishing CBRN defense measures, training both military and civilian personnel on CBRN response operations, CBRN detection as well as decontamination, and much more. This is an MOS that is available for active duty National Guard as well as reserves. But to get into this line of work, you are going to have a high school diploma or a GED, as well as take the ASVAB and get a qualifying AFQT score to qualify you for the United States Army. Now specifically to qualify for this MOS, that is going to come from the skilled technical section of that ASVAB, and that is going to require you to at least get a score of a 100 in that section. Now to get that skilled technical score, that is going to come from 5 subjects that are covered on the ASVAB. Those topics are going to be word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, general science, mechanical comprehension, and mathematics knowledge. The training for this MOS will include the typical 10 weeks of basic training, and from there an individual will move on to 11 weeks of AIT at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Now with this MOS, you could end up in a chemical unit, you could end up in a kind of a non-chemical unit, just in like a chemical platoon. There's a lot of variations you could be doing. You could be in these chemical units, you could be in like decontamination units, but the big thing with really the current Army is that there's not a big kind of threat from chemical attack right now. So that really means that you don't do a whole lot, sadly to say. There are a lot of stories that I hear from people in this MOS that say that, yeah, they'll do some cool training with this stuff, maybe when they're in the field, they're doing a lot of this CBRN stuff, doing some decon, work, or doing some different things with reacting to a chemical environments. But when they're not in the field, they're either probably just working in a supply room, issuing ProMasts out, doing a little bit of training here and there, or just getting stuck on some side details here and there. I'm not trying to discourage anyone that is interested in this MOS, but from a lot of people that I've talked to, it's kind of iffy on how often you really get to do that CBRN job in the Army, in at least today's Army really. So just kind of keep that in mind. It could be a very, thing like where in the field you're doing a lot of it, a few training events here and there, and then a lot of other stuff where you're just kind of getting tasked out for some different things. Like for example, when I was in Iraq during my first tour, there wasn't really a chemical kind of threat. So the chemical individuals were using the really cool Fox vehicles. Those things are pretty cool. They're like all sealed up nice and tight to be able to, keep any kind of, contamination, from getting inside the vehicle. But they were using those for like route recon, for, just convoy security. They were also working at the prison that we had on one of the bases, or detention centers, what it really was. But they were doing a lot of that detention work. So they weren't doing really any chemical work. They were doing kind of a lot of other stuff other than chemical work. So just kind of keep that in mind. Today's Army, there's not a big threat for chemicals, so it can really depend. There might be some locations where you get to do a lot more of the chemical stuff, but then there might be a lot of units where you just get taxed out for a lot of things. You might even hear some stuff in the comments from some individuals, if they have that experience they want to share of this MOS, of them not getting to do a whole lot of chemical stuff. But I could be wrong. There could be a good variety of some people that do and some people that don't. Now, however, there are some jobs on the civilian side that this can translate to, dealing with things like oil spills, dealing with some kind of chemical spill, working with the military still as on the civilian side as a trainer, and all that kind of stuff. There's still some good civilian jobs if you want to get the education in the military, learn about this stuff, do it when depending on the unit, how often you can, and then get out and go on the civilian side and maybe deal with it maybe a little bit more, working with maybe natural disasters and some kind of stuff, maybe even get a job as a firefighter, because sometimes firefighters have to deal with this type of thing when a structure fire for a building that has a lot of chemicals in it. So there are still some good civilian side work that this can translate to if you want to get the education in the military, learn about it, and then translate it to a civilian job. I only know a couple people that did this MOS in the United States Army, and they don't do anything chemical related on the civilian side anymore, but maybe it's just because they didn't like it. I don't know what their deal was. So I would love to hear from any 74 Deltas that are currently in the Army or maybe previously in the Army. Am I right? Am I wrong? Is there some units that you've been to where you did get to do a lot of like chemical type of work, or is it kind of like what I hear from a lot of other soldiers that don't get to do a whole lot of it other than the field and a few other occasions, and the rest is just kind of stuck doing cleanup work or some other taskings to fill some spots here and there? So leave some comments down below if you're currently in the Army in this MOS or previously were in the Army in this MOS. Love to hear your stories on that. If there's an MOS that you are interested in that you would like me to cover in maybe a future episode of MOS Monday, make sure to leave those comments down below, as I do like to look at the comments to get some inspiration to decide which episode to cover next. All right, so there you go. If you enjoyed that MOS breakdown, make sure to slap a like on the video. Check out some links down in the description. Recommended videos over here, including a playlist for some previous MOS Monday episodes. I'm ChrisChaos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. See ya.